My name is Tracey Malawana. I was born and raised in Tembisa. I originate from the Eastern Cape. I am currently serving as the Deputy General Secretary for Equal Education, actually doing my last year now. So I believe one of the things that ignited maybe the fire in me to be an activist and also to end up at Equal Education is because of the inequalities within Ilento Iskolo, in like township schools, but also in like, schools in the city. Sometimes you'll travel to sometimes you travel to town. And when you get there, you'd see a swimming pool, you'd see a tennis court, you'd see a soccer field, you'll see a laboratory for the very first time, but you're doing science in your school and you don't have a privilege, which means a laboratory. You see a library for the very, very first time, a well-resourced library. So some of those things made me realize that we can actually have these things, but in Mhlambe, we can't have them if we don't advocate for them. So that is why I ended up at Equal Education.
Noncedo, Madubedube. I'm the Standing General Secretary at Equal Education. And that's in South Africa. Equal education is organized across 5 provinces. 3 of those are rural provinces in particular. And I make that distinction because when we think about the education system here to today, whether useful or not, the differentiation around the experience in the context of the rural and the urban is quite important in thinking about what kinds of gains we could celebrate, advocate for, at least in the short term. The one thing that I really appreciate about our work is that no one day is the same. And people say this all the time, but it's literally because it's an organization and a movement that is filled with young people. It's led by folks that are 32 years at least. I mean, the average age of a staff member Equal Education is 22 years old. And we come up against different kinds of issues and challenges on a daily basis, and we troubleshoot together. So that in essence means learning to talk to people across race lines, cultural barriers, racial prejudices. It means being aware of your own conscious bias and stepping into spaces of building. Holding your politics dear, but also understanding that we've got a shared principle and a shared code of conduct. And it's sometimes it feels like an extreme sport, but on most days, it's the most rewarding experience I think a young person can have.
So Equal Education, it's a youth-led social movement that is advocating for quality and equality in the South African education system. So we're doing that as a broader democratic struggle for a free, just, and equal society. So we're not just, looking at the education, but we're looking at how to use the education to eradicate the social ills within the communities there too, or different communities that we come from. So we organize teachers, we organize parents, community members, but most importantly, we organize learners who are the ones who are experiencing some of those social ills in communities zabo, especially girls or young women. Then we also they are the ones who are experiencing, some of the difficulties in terms of sanitation. So if you don't have proper sanitation in your school, it means you can't use a toilet even when you are in your periods. Maybe you rather stay at home because you don't want to deal with the sanitation situation in your school. So those are some of the people that we organize. But most importantly, I think Equal Education, we use education as a way to, as I've indicated, to eradicate the social ills as Kolwen, but also in our communities, because we believe iskolo is a reflection of your community. So if you have a structured, disciplined, learners in that particular school, we are likely to have structured community that is also disciplined. So those are some of the things that I think we are also looking at Equal Education.
The role that we've got to play as young people inside civil society, inside the sort of social justice spectrum, it isn't about, catching and lighting a match today and hoping it grows into a wildfire, but really spending time entrenching the ideas of justice and equality and equity inside campaigns that are going to be sustained over a long period of time. And part of what that's meant for me in particular is that the lessons from the sort of democratic or the anti-apartheid era, 60s to the 90s really, are critical in giving us the lessons that we need in order to run the course of democracy and consolidate the gains that we understand ourselves to have made in that era. And that's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in one moment. And so we need to build revolutionary moments that connect tandems from the 60s to the next 30 years. And so we need to share those stories through an intergenerational process. But always, I suppose, taking care around sort of archiving and drawing the narratives around what we've actually learned during this period. And for us to archive in a way that centers our blackness, you know? I mean, I'm sitting here today with Tracey, and I can't be more inspired to do this thing with another black woman. I think every time we walk into a room with other leaders of social justice sector or organizations, there's obviously anxiety and deep fear around my own legitimacy inside of that space, using the titles and the social capital, which I have none, I think. But also knowing that we are a giant you to the system. We are two black working class young women that push forward because of the passions. We push forward because of the ideals, the aspirations of what justice looks like. And we center the school community in it. Because the education, I mean, if you talk to any sort of black young people, they'll tell you that abazali bethu taught us that, imfundo is the key to a different kind of future. And so we, every day, are testament to that kind of evolution.